Let's do it.
Let's do this.
I'm Darren McCarthy.
I'm Dan Fury.
I'm Martin Wallace.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Jared was a
It's going to
bad
be tricky.
idea.
No, I'm just going to sit forward.
Okay.
Okay.
It's going to be fine.
Whoa.
This is
Almost
the
lost him.
fundamentals.
Yeah. Starting off real fun.
Yeah, that chair is...
It's a goofy chair.
Yeah. We're going to need to spend some money on our facilities.
We're going to do some upgrades. So check this out. This is the first time that all three of us have done a topic-based episode in coming on 3 years.
Wow.
Can you believe that shit? The Electoral College was the last full episode that we
Was
did
it really?
together. Yeah.
that was in
Wow.
a backyard in the summer. Like,
In May, I think it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, I had a completely different major back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Well,
But here we are.
What are we talking about today? And actually, this is another first, I think. So what do we got going on?
Well, we're going to begin the discussion on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
Finally.
as we must
Finally.
address it if we are to adhere to the requests of the church.
Yeah.
They don't like to be called Mormons anymore.
Do they not?
No.
This is already starting off with a bang.
I
This
know.
is great.
The current prophet gave a talk very recently in General Conference.
He's alive.
See, all right.
The current
No. All right. So I have to tell you
Okay.
up front, you're going to have to stop and explain
That's great.
almost like every third word
But
you
that's
say.
good because here's the thing. So we've alluded to it before in passing,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I've ever been explicit in that I was raised in this church and I went to church every Sunday for at least 20 years. But having done that and having learned everything I was supposed to learn at the congregation level, I had no idea just how much I did not know about that faith, having not gone to the temple and not gone on a mission and all that stuff. So for some reason, about a year and a half ago, I was actually thinking about this. Like,
Mhm.
what if we were to have a discussion on it? I think there's a lot that I actually don't know. There's a lot of questions I wouldn't be able to answer about the faith that I was supposed to have. So I'm going to have to look into this a little bit. And even just looking into it a little bit, I had no idea. So I've learned a lot. I have studied and researched a lot. So much so that there's so much floating around in my brain of minutia and details about the history, about the people, about Book of Mormon stories, that I found it difficult to approach the topic at the fundamental level.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you're both here in order to kind of steer the conversation of
That's
your
what we
questions.
do the best.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep it-
I
keep it
know
simple.
nothing.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know, each of us have had conversations together about things that I've been learning and how it's related to my own family and my own understanding, because my mind has been blown over and over again.
Can we just for this first? This will be more than a single episode on this topic.
I
for
think
sure.
so.
Can we just start at kind of base level, kind of timeline of like the formation of the church or the religion?
Yeah.
And then what, if any, are the key principles that separate it from other Christian faiths?
Yeah, of which there are many, and most of those I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
Growing up, I didn't see how it was all that different besides having another book of scripture.
Mm-hmm.
prophets is a pretty big giveaway.
Living prophets.
Living prophets.
Who are called of God to be the prophet of his.
So they're like
to his
American
people.
popes.
How many prophets are there?
Have there been
Or so there's one prophet who's
at a
like,
time?
he-
Yeah,
he-
and they serve until they pass.
and they function kind of like the Pope does for the Catholic Church.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Big there.
Pretty good analogy.
If you have any sort of theological question, the prophet gets the final word.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, there's a quote once the prophet has spoken, the thinking has been done.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I know.
So
See, now that
once
we're
say
starting
so,
this, I'm
shut up.
starting to think that Martin Wallace is gonna, like, by the end of this week, we're gonna have a new religion that Martin Wallace starts.
Prophet Wallace.
Has a great ring to it.
I'm already into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Pope Wallace.
here we have the Trinity. Don't get it confused though, because it's
Yeah.
more like, like
Don't get it
a
twisted.
pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
than it is.
See, you give me a $10.
Any kind
and
of
then
equal points here. You understand? I am at the top. You guys are the base
You understand?
of the Trinity. It's not.
I can see you're confused. Just trust me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The thinking has been done.
So says Wallace.
I don't need you to think. I need you to just do what I say.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Into it.
I think it was Elder Oaks who said, it is wrong to criticize the leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true.
That's a little Hitlerish, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. Yeah. This is kind of pretty early for me to throw this out there, but how is that not a cult?
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Yeah, keep it coming.
yeah.
Make your judgment now.
Isn't it Joe Rogan who said the difference between cults and religions, they were both started by a guy, but in a religion, that guy's dead.
Hmm.
If the guy's alive, it's a cult.
That's a pretty good distinction.
Yeah.
So who, let's get down to the formation of the church.
Yeah.
How did it start? Who started it?
Most people know the name Joseph Smith.
Mhm.
He is the man who communed with Jehovah and became the prophet, seer, and revelator of the Lord's true church.
All right. So
He
God,
restored the gospel as it was when Christ was on the earth for these latter days.
All right.
okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, well, this was what, like 1840 or something?
1830 is when the Book of Mormon is printed.
Damn, so close.
Yeah.
So this is the church's timeline. 1820 is when he says that he's visited by God, the Heavenly Father, and his Son, Jesus Christ. Distinctly two different people, because in traditional Christianity,
Now we're going back to that Trinity stuff.
yes. But again, this doesn't come about until he doesn't write this down, the first vision, as they call it, until, I believe, 1832. And there's at least 9 different variations of the first vision. Now, if
That's like one a year, right? That makes sense.
but in some of them, it's just Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
In one of them, I believe it's just an unnamed angel. And at first, his first handwritten account, he just said that, I think it was just Christ that came and told him that he was forgiven of his sins. The 1838,
And that's old news, right? That's kind of what Christ did.
Yeah.
that's kind of his thing. I don't think he needed to come visit.
Probably just trying to get rid of his debts specifically.
Yeah. You're good.
Yeah.
You go ahead and do your work. In 1838 is when the canonized version of the first vision is written. And that he went out to the woods to pray in what they now call the sacred grove to ask of God.
Yeah, that's not played out at all.
I say they like their name, like they like to name things.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
I don't think the Hill Cumorah was named the Hill Cumorah before all of this.
Yeah.
So 1823, the angel Moroni appears to Joseph Smith, tells him that there's a set of golden plates buried in the Hill Cumorah, which is like 2 miles from his house, in which he will be granted access to them to translate them, present them to the world. This is a record of the ancient people of the Americas, in which Christ visited after his resurrection. Somehow. I've still never understood how they explain how Christ just showed up in America.
He
After he
just
was
walked
resurrected?
across the ocean, I think.
Yeah.
Not even that, I don't think, has been presented as he just
As an
showed
option.
up.
He just showed up. Yeah.
Well,
He's a resurrected being, so I guess he can just do
yeah.
whatever he wants.
Son of God. I mean,
Yeah.
that's actually if we're gonna, all right, on face value,
Even
the
as a
Son of God
kid,
showed up. Okay,
even as a kid, I was
Right,
like,
like,
wait, what?
How? I think if you're already believing in the rest of the Christian
canon.
story,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
sort of not really much of a stretch.
Right.
When did Joseph Smith say that the angel Moroni visited him when he was 14?
Much later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did that not coincide with some legal trouble?
It always seemed to coincide with advancing his stature as a prophet, as a man of God.
And what
It was
little
always retroactively
Yeah.
fitting stuff in.
some things that are kind of rattling around in my head about Joseph Smith. Like he was a con man. He was
Totally.
brought to court for like tax fraud or
He was brought to
conning
court
people.
and charged as a glass looker, essentially.
Yeah, I got those charges pending myself.
he was people in these days were very into folk magic
Mm.
and visions. And I mean, aside from, like Christian revival movements and stuff, they were kind of into folk magic stuff.
The arcane, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that, so he was helping this man dig a well. And at some point he found this smooth, round rock that he really liked. Of course, it belonged to the man who he was working for. And he asked him if he could borrow it. And I think this was sometime later.
Absolutely not.
Well, he did, and he said, yes, as long as you promise to bring it back to me. And he kept it for a while. And when that guy asked for it back, he never got it back. This is the stone that he used.
And this is just a regular, like just a good looking
It's a
rock,
good-looking
right?
rock.
It's not like a piece of precious metal or
No.
ore or
Just a nice, smooth, chocolate-colored.
it's just like the kind of
Stone.
thing that while you're doing manual labor digging in the dirt, you say, that's the nicest rock I've seen
Mhm.
today.
And it's the early 1800s, and there's literally nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Can I take this home and look at it for a couple months?
Yeah. That's what he did.
Okay.
Took a shiny to it. Then he used it as an instrument of divination. So he would tell people that I can look, if you pay me, I can look at this stone, see where there's buried treasure, like on your property.
We call that a prop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Show you where to dig to find it. Nothing was ever found. He would say
Get
that,
out.
oh, the spirits moved it before we could get to it. They figured it out and they took it away before we can get to it.
Those crafty spirits.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
damn
They sure
spirits.
like material goods.
Yeah. Not getting my treasure. This plays into him trying to get the plates as well. And at this point I'm thoroughly convinced that he never intended, just like L. Ron Hubbard, he did not intend to start a religion.
Mm.
He just wanted a
Easier life, maybe? Or
totally.
Make
He
some
did not
money.
want to work.
Yeah.
He was a lazy guy. He wanted
I'm into that.
this story of treasure seeking to bring forth something that he could use to make money. So it was going to be a record of the ancient people of America, but I don't think at first it had anything to do with being a religious
Mhm.
book. That was placed in after.
I mean, this is a time when there still are Native Americans around,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why believe the white guy
Exactly.
with the stones?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there wasn't a whole lot of friendly communication between the two groups, but
Well,
No,
there
there was plenty, but still, why believe the white guy?
Yeah. Why believe the white guy that says this is where your people came from?
Mhm.
Actually,
Mhm.
which
that
we'll
sounds
get
kind
there.
of familiar. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're already in like deep waters
Yeah,
as far as like
yeah.
basic stuff, because some of his accounts of the angel Moronites, it was Nephi for a long time.
The name was Nephi?
Nephi is like a major figure in the Book of Mormon, and up until even through 1835, when the first history of the church was written, it was accounted as Nephi visiting him. So
All right. So
already it's weird.
let's try to get maybe like a rough timeline. So 1820s, he's claiming he's been visited by God and Jesus Christ.
So the official version is he goes to the woods, prays to God, asks which of the churches are true. They tell him none of them. It's going to be yours, bud.
Is that the one and only truth in Mormonism?
Well, that's the
I think that's the one thing they got right.
yeah. But they basically give him the go ahead. This is going to be your duty to restore the true gospel to the earth.
Okay. All right. So already there's a difference.
Yeah.
So there's other tons of Christian sects. There's Catholicism. There's
there's during this time period in America, and in particular where he was. This is in
Burned over district.
Yeah, that it's like northern New York State, right? That whole area was ripe with people coming out with revisionist versions of sects of Christianity. So it's just it's common parlance for people to be.
Yeah. So you're saying that everyone else is doing it wrong. I'm doing it right.
Yep.
Okay.
We got the truth over here. But this is like next level truth. Not only do we have the right preaching of the gospel, the Bible, we have a new book. Okay.
Ooh, latest.
We have more
latest edition.
scriptures.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great. So he eventually says that he receives the plates from the ground. It takes him 4 years. He goes back to the hill 4 years in a row. The angel tells him he's not ready, that he's not doing it right, that he's not worthy, that he's not doing what he should do. He's not prepared.
Angel's 2 for 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's nailing it. He finally gets the golden plates that he's supposed to translate. Now, it's said that buried with the plates are the Urim and Thummim from the Bible.
Sure.
Which is, in this case, a breastplate with spectacles in order to use them to translate the words. Because...
we don't usually see Jesus with glasses. But or body armor.
Well,
but
for some reason, these people who are supposed to be from Jerusalem, they're Hebrews that traveled to the Americas. These are the people of Lehi. He brings his family over. They multiply on this continent.
Wait, how did they get here?
Well, yeah, okay.
So this was like an ancient. He's reading this off these tablets. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the record of these people.
Okay.
Etched on golden plates.
Okay.
It's basically the history of these people abridged to these golden plates. Apparently, there was many more sets of plates that they were condensed from.
Okay.
And these are the people.
Okay. The Spark Notes version of the golden plates. On golden plates.
Yeah.
I get it. I follow. Yeah. Why read the whole thing?
And we'll just give you the best stuff. The biggest wars. So the Nephites and the Lamanites, the good people and the bad people, essentially. The Nephites were the righteous. The Lamanites were the unrighteous.
Did they know that?
They wore. Oh yeah, they knew.
Okay.
Because the Lamanites were cursed with the dark skin.
Oh yeah, that's God's way of telling.
Here we
you.
go.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
These are supposed to be the ancestors of the Native Americans, the Lamanites. So this book essentially is written as a record for the descendants of the Lamanites, the Native Americans. So this is a common thought at this time, the idea that these Native Americans are somehow from Israel.
Yeah.
That they're Hebrew.
Were they one
in
of the
origin.
lost tribes? Is that the idea? It really took a
Essentially,
wrong
I
turn
think.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of just kept going, right?
Yeah. Okay. No, I
So
wasn't
many
on board, but
details.
now I am.
Yeah, they built
Uh-huh.
sweet ships that they came over in.
So this is already ringing like the Scientology, where
Mhm.
these souls flew in on aircraft, spaceships that look like DC-4s or
Mhm.
whatever. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of anachronisms in the Book of Mormon that showed just how much it is a thought of a person in the 1800s of what would it have been like 1,500, 2,000 years ago with the mind of a person who was in this time. It doesn't map on to reality.
I like that.
But people think this is actual
Canon.
sacred scripture. This is the true
The Word of God.
Not only that, it's like an ancient history.
Oh, like this is
It's an encyclopedia of what we didn't know before, of how these people got here.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's just a book.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that. Because we now know through DNA, Native Americans are not Hebrew. Like, not in the least. That's not how they got here. So we know that. The church knows that, so they've had to change the introduction to the Book of Mormon to say that they are among the ancestry of these people, not directly. Even though it still doesn't make sense.
Oh, well, yeah. Yes, everybody is among the ancestry of everybody else. You just vague the terms a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So the Native Americans are of the planet. I get it.
Yeah.
Big revelation there.
And now they've kind of changed the story in that these people came from Jerusalem and then mixed with the people that were already here. But that's not the story of the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon people were supposed to be secluded and protected.
So it's really
world.
just a description of the history of Pennsylvania.
It has a lot to do with it.
The Quakers and
the locale is
being pretty
huge.
friendly
Yeah.
with the
There's
natives.
names of places and people in the Book of Mormon that are obviously lifted from places around him that he knew of.
Mm-hmm.
So we're already like in several different directions. So,
Yeah, I had a question like 40 minutes ago.
Yeah. So
forgotten it.
So initially, he's supposed to. Okay, so this is one of the big ones. They wrote down this history on these plates in what they called Reformed Egyptian, which is the language of their people. Nobody's ever heard of this before or since. It only makes sense that nobody would, even if he were to show you the gold plates, this is Reformed Egyptian. You don't know how to read this. I'm the prophet. I will translate it.
Is there anything left of what Reformed Egyptian looks like? Is it even? Do we know?
There is a set of characters.
Oh, good. He's trapped himself.
He did. He over and over again. He did. Yes. That he wrote down on
Terrific.
a. See, now we're jumping ahead a while, but yes, there are remnants of what he said to be the characters of the Book of Mormon in Reformed Egyptian, and
is it even derivative of hieroglyphics? Like, is it even
just a tiny bit? It's also like Greek, and like
I did his homework,
and then something from the Mexican calendar. It's a hodgepodge of things. It's clearly nonsense.
Okay, so it's like a beetle scarab on its side, a delta, and Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
It's a Corona beer
much.
cap.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So he's the only way you're going to be able to the only way you're going to be able to translate this stuff is with these spectacles. So the initial translation, he's got like a sheet up between him and his scribe. So he's dictating the translation to his scribe. Eventually, and this is not something that I knew at all, and like I told you before, when I saw this in the South Park episode, I was like, well, that's not how it went down. That's just silly. And that he's looking into a hat at this stone that he loves so much. He's holding the hat up to his face to block out the light surrounding, so that the stone glows with the hieroglyphic and the English translation that he's dictating to his scribe. The scribe has to dictate it back, and if it's wrong, it won't leave his sight until it's dictated back correctly. Then it will move on to the next translation. This is how it is described that he did most of this translation with this stone and a hat.
Okay. I would just like to point out here how perfectionist God is with this.
Yes.
Right? And why this makes sense. Because according to this religion, God has over and over again gotten it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Now we're getting
So
it right.
now he's making sure by double checking every sentence.
Yeah, he's sick of it. He's sick of the mistakes.
Mhm.
Do
Right.
you know how long
Mhm.
he's been trying?
Yeah. So you know
Long
what?
time.
Every prophet so far fucked it up. Okay. We had Moses.
Idiot.
Yeah. Stone for one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oops. And then, you got your Jesus, and he was just sort of a freeloader.
Milk toast.
You got
just
Muhammad, who was just a little fanatical.
Loved horses.
So let's do a con man this time, right?
Yeah.
He's
Okay.
going to get it right.
Now, all right. So here's just to kind of clarify. Why is he like? Who is paying attention to him at this point? Like, are there people waiting for him?
Well,
To
so he
translate
has
this,
he
or
has
is
this
it-
like.
Yeah, like how many followers does he have at this point?
Well, he doesn't have any followers yet. There are people
He's just
expecting.
sitting in a room.
He has been talking about these gold plates for a while. His family knows about it. His family's been talking about it.
Oh, so
his-
it's sort of like, I got a job, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. His fellow treasure-seeking buddies know about this. He claims that when he found the gold plates, dug them up, and was taking them home, that he was accosted by people who were trying to steal them. Now, if these plates were made of gold, as he described them to be in the size and depth, they would have weighed like 200 pounds. So he's a superhuman football player running these things home 2 miles to his house.
Here, my other point here is that much gold probably worth
Very valuable.
enough to just melt that
That's why-
down. And
that's
So
why-
something is like the best possible explanation here is this is his trial. This is him
Mhm.
sitting out and starving for 40 days and seeing the devil.
Yeah.
It's him having to look at gold literally all day and not be able to sell it
yeah.
as somebody who is a self-professed treasure hunter.
Yeah. Or
Hmm.
they never existed. and-
They
yeah.
didn't.
All right.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So he's made it known, or he's professed that he had access to these tablets.
Mhm.
Only he can
He was
translate
getting
them.
them. He was going
So
to get
there
them.
are some people kind of paying attention to what he's saying at this point. Just in the all right, go ahead and prove it.
Yeah,
that-
we're waiting.
We're waiting. That kind of sense. Okay. Man,
Yeah.
what an annoying family member or friend
Mm-hmm.
this guy would be.
I'm really curious. This is less to do with like the actual impact of the teaching and more what the common cultural concept was with you growing up in the church.
Yeah.
If the idea is that the Native Americans were descended from a lost tribe of Israel,
Mhm.
how did people in the church just in general view Native Americans? Was there any desire to reach out to help them, to intermingle with them?
I don't recall that.
So my question is, what was so important about that revelation in the first place?
It's
that
totally
they
a product
were-
of the time.
It's nonsense now, right? Like
Yeah,
it
total
totally
nonsense.
isn't involved in the culture whatsoever. There isn't some Mormon reaching out
Mm-mm.
to
They-
the tribes, right?
At the time, after the book came out, there was missionaries that Joseph sent to the Native American people in order to like convert them.
I'm sure they were well received.
Not really. No. But yeah, it wasn't. I don't remember that being a focus because obviously by the time I'm in it, we're far beyond that. Like the face of the church today is very different than the church of Joseph Smith, which I'm only now just finding out how different that it was. But so he translates, and there's a whole, man, I don't know how far we're going to get. I want to get so much farther, but
No, we'll just take it episode at a time.
Yeah,
This is
I guess we will.
fascinating.
I know.
Fascinating. Yeah.
so his initial scribe is Martin Harris, who is a successful farmer, but not a bright guy. He's very gullible. He's got the money.
You sure?
Yes.
You sure he's gullible
Yes.
and not very bright?
And both. Yes.
You tell me the kind of guy who would sit behind a screen while a dude with no money and no job reads from a rock.
Yeah. Yep.
You sure he wasn't sitting in a room with some college diplomas all around him?
the church likes to say that there's no way that he could have come up with all this. He wasn't that smart. He wasn't able to read or write that well. I have not found that really to be the case. He was, if not intelligent, he was crafty. He was convincing. He was charismatic for sure. And he was ultimately a great synthesizer of information. The Book of Mormon is a collection of ideas with a layer of Christian religion on top of it, onto this like supposed history of people of a place. We now know where all of these pieces came from. Other books, other ideas that were, it was a common idea at the time that, like I said, that the Native Americans were of Hebrew origin. It was a fascinating thought. And there was a book called View of the Hebrews, published in 1823, I believe, that is easily comparable to the Book of Mormon. It's clearly one of the sources that was used.
I guess all I need to know, could Joseph Smith read, and did he?
Yeah. Well, he knew the Bible pretty well.
All right, so
King James Version of the Bible is heavily inserted into the Book of Mormon, which doesn't make any sense. So Isaiah 9:1, King James Version. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation.
Right, I think we all have that memorized.
Sure. 2 Nephi 19:1. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation. When blah, 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 blah. It's like verbatim, almost, in this collection. So how would that be? And there's so many translation errors in the King James Version of the Bible that are in the Book of Mormon.
Oh, that's good. That's rich.
So right away, it's like, obviously this is a source of the time.
Perjured himself.
now here's the thing. We've been talking about this for under an hour, and it is already way too complicated.
I have so much more.
Wait, when you think about like as a brand, what's wrong with this? You couldn't give someone here's the 30-second elevator pitch. With Jesus, it's like, okay, God created everything, sent his son to earth, who was then killed to absolve all of humanity of their sins. Do you want in? This,
Yeah, I mean, you can just say Judaism for free.
yeah.
It's yours today. Take it home.
You can
Drive
do
it off
whatever
a lot.
do whatever you want, and if at the end of your life you say, "Whoopsies, sorry," all is forgiven.
Yeah, I'm into that.
See, we've already gotten into details of the major points. So
This seems to me like if HBO was to have this pilot as the episode, like I would be so into it.
Yeah.
Like when you were talking about like as a synthesizer of information, this reads to me like great pulp fiction.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like it's nonsense, it's garbage, but it's very, very interesting, and it's a great idea. It's just not true.
This is biblical fan fiction, is what it boils down
I
to.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it ever get hot and steamy? Is there any,
Polygamy.
I'm not.
Well, yeah, I'm into that. But I mean, in the book, I want to read some.
You want to read it?
Yeah.
What if we all see? So this next year, I've been inundated with Book of Mormon passages my entire life. I've never read the whole thing front to back. I have.
That's the thing. What you want to do that?
Do I want to? I wouldn't say that much, but I'm going to do my due diligence, and I am going to.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have is an original 1830 version, which has no chapter or verse break. It's not written like scripture. It's written like a novel. And it's also
Chapters?
quite different. It has chapters, but
Okay.
it doesn't look like scripture like
Yeah.
it does now. And it's also large ideas, along with like, there's like thousands of changes through the iterations up until what we have now. Chiefly among them being the nature of God. It's originally written in the traditional sense of Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. He is the Lord God. And it's changed around 1837 to be the the Son of God, after he's given this account of both of them visiting him and his ideas change, the religion morphs in the 1830s
Just
as
what was
his
convenient at the
theology
time, yeah.
changes. Yes.
All right, so he translates
Quote
the
unquote.
Rishit to a scribe, a dumb neighbor.
Well, it starts with Martin Harris.
Yeah.
They're 116 pages in. His wife,
Martin's wife.
Lucy, asks to see these pages. Joseph says, "Well, God doesn't. He's not going to let you do that. We're not. These aren't leaving." Martin asks him a few more times. Joseph asks God if he can do this several times. He says no. Finally, he says yes. He lets Martin take these pages. Those pages disappear.
He was an idiot. Lost his pages.
Lucy was the smart one.
Lucy
Whatever
Harris.
she did, she made those pages disappear to test him. If this is a true record that he has, he can reproduce these pages. So he finds a way around it. And that all of a sudden...
So Lucy trashes these pages and says, do it again, prove it.
And he's like, well, actually, no,
Man.
Martin, you messed up and you're not going to be the scribe anymore. And then he says that he loses the power of translation for a time because God's mad that this happened.
Okay.
So eventually...
Better than an earthquake.
Yeah.
So eventually, it just so happens...
Okay, hold on. I'm so sorry. But like the week after week of just Lucy and Martin in bed. And Lucy just being like, he's a fucking liar, right? And Martin being
Martin,
like, nope,
you know this.
Nope, no. Prophet of God.
I think there's a quote from Martin to his wife. Even if it is a fiction, I could make money of it. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the thing you would say to your frustrated wife.
Yeah. So
I could be so much more if I didn't have you in the way.
Yeah,
Right.
You
You just want me to farm carrots.
Martin Harris, the Book of Mormon wouldn't exist without him. He essentially pays for it. He sells his farm, I believe. In order to,
No wonder Lucy
he's
was
all
pissed.
he's all in, and he loses his ass. So they were translating from the plates of Lehi. So it just so happens that this story is actually abridged and it has like much more of the religious stuff in the plates of Nephi. So we're just going to take it from that. This story we have over here, so we don't need that.
Okay, so wait, just one more clarification. So
Just one more, and then we'll let you tell you tell us the
for
rest
for another
story
20
of
seconds, and then
Mormon.
we'll stop you again. But so when he's
great.
doing this translation, there's no tablets. He's just looking at the stone in this hat. This is back.
See, eventually he gestures and acts like as if the plates. Anyone who saw the plates, his wife, his mother, said that they felt them through a cloth. So clearly there was a prop at some point.
All right, so no one besides him ever quote unquote saw these plates.
Not even the what are claimed to be the witnesses of the plates. This was like the angel showed them. A common spiritual experience was seen with a spiritual eye.
Okay,
and that's how these men say that they were shown the
Yeah, I've
plates,
done
or
that
they
before.
saw the plates.
sure.
So no, there is no clear, reliable source of information to say that
plates.
anyone saw these plates with their naked eye.
Okay,
Even Martin Harris said that he saw them with the spiritual eye.
okay. Just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So he gets around it, these lost 116 pages, by saying, well, I'm going to use the source from the plates of Nephi. And it's written into the Book of Mormon. And I forget exactly how that happens, but Mormon is writing these things down. Joseph basically writes into the story that we have this other source that's much better. It saves time. So don't worry about this other stuff. But why would God waste his time if he knew this was going to happen?
I mean, he was focused on getting it right. The first time we just stopped to make that
Yeah,
point.
they had a hat and a rock. I mean,
He was repeating back.
And the hat and the rock
from
comes, I think, after this incident.
We have to make sure
or
the
at least,
farmer
like-
says it right to you before we
All right,
progress.
so now they're translated from a different set of tablets.
So what I was
Where
saying
did he
was
find these?
the what?
The next set of tablets. Where did he find those?
So this is in the Book of Mormon
Okay.
that he's translating. That there's the plates of Nephi that are inserted in the book, which are a better version of Lehi's story. So we're just going to use that. We don't need those last 116 pages. Don't worry about it.
I've decided you don't need details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Word of
That
God.
was boring. Let's and it's written actually.
The word of the Lord. I shall not bother you with
This-
details.
You figure it out.
This original version, the 1830,
That's a great looking book, by the way.
right?
Holy
This is
shit.
a replica of the original.
It's
printing.
leather bound. I can tell.
That's right.
They make sure you know that.
23 karat gold tooling. This preface page isn't in this book any longer, but he starts out by addressing the rumors of these lost pages, and that, look, don't worry, we got it taken care of. Let's see if I can.
I thought that was quoting verbatim.
Look, don't worry about it.
Hey, what happens in Vegas?
This is how it starts. Look, don't worry. Will you just read that? Just read that
Sure.
passage to us.
Preface. To the reader, as many false reports have been circulated respecting the following work, and also many unlawful measures taken by evil designing persons to destroy me, and also the work, I would inform you that I translated by the gift and power of God, and caused to be written 116 pages, the which I took from the book of Lehi, which was an account abridged from the plates of Lehi by the hand of Mormon, which said account some person or persons have stolen and kept from me, notwithstanding my utmost exertions to recover it again, and being commanded of the Lord that I should not translate the same over again, for Satan had put it in their hearts to tempt the Lord their God by altering the words, that they did read contrary from that which I had translated and caused to be written. And if I should bring forth the same words again, or in other words, if I should translate the same over again, they would publish that which they had stolen, and Satan would stir up their hearts of this generation, that they might not receive this work. But behold, the Lord said unto me, I will not suffer that Satan shall accomplish his evil design in this thing. Therefore, thou shalt translate from the plates of Nephi until ye come to that which ye have translated, which ye have retained, and behold, ye shall publish it as the record of Nephi. And thus I will confound those who have altered my words. I will not suffer that they shall destroy my work. Yea, I will shew unto them that my wisdom is greater than the cunning of the devil. Wherefore, to be obedient unto the commandments of God, I have, through his grace and mercy, accomplished that which he hath commanded me respecting this thing. I would also inform you that the plates of which hath been spoken were found in the township of Manchester, Ontario County, New York. Signed, the author.
Yeah.
P.S. Lucy is a cunt.
Yeah,
Lucy is a
that bitch.
So that was my thought during that too. That was clearly fuck you, Lucy.
Yeah.
Right. You are the spawn of Satan. Satan is in your heart.
Yeah.
Right.
And we got around
terrible.
it. So,
But
in
the,
your face.
the other thought that I had is that's great fucking marketing though.
Totally.
This book shows up and here it is.
Oh, controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much has been said, right?
But-
about the words that follow. Yeah, you may have heard the devil is trying to stop this
You may
book
have
from
heard.
coming back.
Kind of sounds familiar
Right.
today. You know, like people are saying,
Mhm.
Yeah.
people are
People have
talking.
said, people
are
I've
saying.
heard,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, a
wouldn't
lot
it
of
make
parallels.
sense?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more, if I was in this situation, I would hold those pages and hope for him to be right. Show me that you can do this, and then I'll believe you.
Oh, if you were Lucy.
Not that I would, if you do it, I'll change it so that I could prove that you did it
well,
wrong.
I mean, so the thing is, if he was receiving the word of the Lord,
Yeah.
then what you have is proof of a miracle, which he
Right.
does not have.
Right. So he has to explain it
And
away.
so Lucy's intention might not have been so evil as it seemed,
Right.
but Joseph knew that it had to be because he was full of shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's got a heart full of Satan.
It's full of Satan.
I want to go on record. I feel bad for calling Lucy a cunt earlier.
I actually really like her. So far,
Yeah,
she's the
I think
hero
that
of the
she
story.
is-
Yeah.
She is regarded among,
She's
like,
doing the Lord's work
Mhm.
here.
especially among ex-Mormons. Like,
Mhm.
Good on you.
Do they call themselves Lucyites?
No.
They should. We should probably.
Get together, get some meetings.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Start
you
a
may have
thing.
heard. Yeah.
Church
Behold.
of Lucy.
People are saying that
You know,
Lucy's
people,
real.
yeah, people say that. Yeah, Lucyites are,
Yeah,
what
she's
people
oh,
are
man.
saying they shouldn't be
she's
called,
a
but that's what
real-
they should be called.
real A+ gal.
Yeah. Lucy.
Anyway, we're gonna pass the hat if you guys want to put in a
Should be
little tithing. I mean, 10%
An
of your
offering.
income.
Yeah, I mean, just don't look in the
Donation,
hat though,
a
because
donation.
I'm the only one who can read Reformed
Yeah.
Egyptian.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
just put
Yeah.
money into the hat so that when I look into the hat, I know how much more I should be translating.
Yeah. If
Let
you
the
really
good
want to
times
translate it
roll.
correctly.
Mhm.
So that preface is not in the book any longer. It's
Is
just
there a
in-
preface anymore?
No,
No, it just
none of
jumps
that.
right into the meat.
These pages left intentionally blank.
Then it starts with the title page.
Yeah. I love how he refers to himself as the author too. Like we know.
Yeah. So he had to say that he had to credit himself as the author, not the translator, in order to secure the copyright. So in this version of the book,
Oh.
by Joseph Smith Jr., author and proprietor,
Uh-huh.
even though that's not what he's claiming.
TM.
TM. Yeah.
Big R with a circle around it.
So I don't want to get too bogged down by the details of this, but eventually somebody else comes along to be the scribe. His name is Oliver Cowdery. He's actually like a distant cousin of Joseph.
Oliver, just for a second, Oliver is a name you don't hear enough in America
Mhm.
anymore. That is something we need to bring back. We need more Olivers
Yeah,
just around in general.
Yeah.
Right?
I would trust.
That's a real
somebody named Oliver.
American name, right?
Yeah. Oliver.
Yeah.
Once he comes around, then the translation really progresses,
Hmm.
and it happens in something like 51 days. The completion of the translation, quote
Mhm.
unquote, when he's dictating through a hat and whatnot.
Got themselves
Cowdery-
some coffee, maybe.
And
Or-
same scenario. There's a sheet. There's a hat with a rock.
At this point, he's just looking at the hat and dictating. The plates are not in the room most of the time, is what the story is. So a real connection here is that his pastor was Ethan Smith, author of Few of the Hebrews, his Christian pastor. Okay.
Okay.
So can you imagine that he shows up after hearing about this book of ancient record about the ancient inhabitants of the land? Joseph said that he saw in his, I think through his stone, this person who would be his scribe, who
Hmm.
just showed up. But they knew each other before. They were cousins, and I think Cowdery had lived with his parents or something at some point before this.
This is a bad twist in a bad movie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy that shit.
At all.
Yeah.
So View of the Hebrews, I think, comes into play here heavily. And there's also other sources that could be even bigger sources of the authorship, like
The Bible.
well, the Bible is certainly a big one. There's also a theory, the Spalding theory, in which there's this manuscript that was left at a printer and never was published. That Solomon Spalding had talked about this story. It's called Manuscript Found, and it's the story of ancient Israelites coming to America. And there's in the Book of Mormon, the phrase "and it came to pass" is repeated ad nauseum.
It's a heavy phrase. I like
Yeah.
it. You know, it's
When-
like "so it is known" or something.
Yeah. And verily, verily, I say unto you, that's a big one too. So when
Yeah, I buy that.
after
Yeah.
the
Keep telling me that
Sounds-
over and over
sounds
again. I
biblical.
believe it.
Yeah.
when this book is published and is circulating and being preached, there are people that are like, wait a minute, this sounds like Solomon Spalding's story. And they called him Old Come to Pass because it would be so repeated in his story that he would tell people. So Manuscript Found is not available because there was one copy of it left at this printer and never was printed. It's theorized that a man who also was a huge part of the early church, Sidney Rigdon, found this manuscript, took it, used it into the story, placed all the biblical Christianity stuff on top of it, and then got rid of it. So it's hard to prove because there is no actual manuscript, but there's several sworn affidavits that were like, this is Solomon Spaulding's story with the names Nephi, Lehi. It's all, we've heard this before.
And he was not around to.
No, he was dead.
He was dead.
I think this is like 1817. Or
Yeah,
something.
that could have been like the second coming of Lucy there.
But there's also another manuscript by him. It's called, I think, Manuscript Story. And it seems like a rough draft
Okay.
for a manuscript.
Yeah,
found.
that sounds like what I would just save the file has.
Which,
before I had a title.
which we do have.
Manuscript story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we do have that, and it's not as
Book I'm
directly.
working on.
Restaurant resume.
Yeah. It's not as directly obvious, but the elements are there to show that Spaulding definitely has some part of this origin story. So I'm actually surprising myself in that I thought I was going to have to prepare like a sequence of notes and stuff. And I think
You've been doing all this off the top of your head.
yeah, because
Jesus
this is all
Christ.
rattling around. And I think most of it, at least, is pretty accurate. But it's hard because, every time you talk about something, there's all these
Tangents.
potholes
Yeah.
in everything. So we're only up to the publication of this book. And that's not even the craziest shit at all.
Well, let's get to when the book is published and
Yeah.
the initial reaction, and then maybe like call it for this episode.
You think so?
Let's just do an hour at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't want to listen to this for much longer.
Well, here's the thing. There are other podcasts that really dive into this. There's other sources you can look at in order to have a detailed history of the church, how this all came about, what it all means. This is the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And when my sister comes back, my sister served a mission for 18 months. She was very devout, believed it wholeheartedly. And as of the last 6 to 8 months, is right there with me on the other side. And when she gets
That's
back,
fresh wounds.
yeah, very. So she was a true believing Mormon. And I can't say that after my teenage years, that I really was. I didn't stop going because I knew all of this stuff and I knew it wasn't true. I didn't like it. I didn't like going to church. I wasn't into it. I wasn't moved by it. I did not want to go on a mission, which disappointed everyone. If you're a young man who doesn't go on a mission, something's wrong with you.
You're not going to get married till you're like 25.
Exactly.
Didn't go on a mission?
No true believing Mormon woman wants to marry a man who is not a returned missionary. So you're spoiled
You're out of that
meat.
that
Yeah, you're out of the game.
sex pool.
Mm-hmm. But when she
Ay, ay.
she returns, she's in China right now. And, I want her to be here so we can do a episode on the Book of Mormon and what the contents of it are, the full story of it, because she's read it many times. She's preached it, and also get her take on being all the way in and now pretty much all the way out.
I cannot wait to talk to her.
No, I think that's great idea. I'm stoked. I think we get all of the prerequisite information out of the way, all the history,
Mhm.
as much as we could know before we get in there with the two of you to battle it out.
It's interesting though, because I mean, I feel like I've been an atheist my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
even though I had to go to church. And I can't imagine. I was already like a non-believer,
Yeah,
and I can't imagine. By the way, here's the hot new religion down the street,
yeah.
and it's this ridiculous.
Yeah, I was made to go to church long after I didn't want to.
Yeah, and then people buy into it. I just
Converts are, I believe, far fewer these days. Most of them come from other countries.
developing world.
Yeah, like
I think that's
more than half of the members of the church exist outside the United States.
I think that's true.
That's
too,
pretty
for like
telling.
for
Mhm.
Catholic priests and Catholic nuns. It's most of the new priests or new nuns are from developing countries.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, who requires most the concept that this life is a test for salvation and eternal reward in the next?
The poor.
When people are having a pretty bad time right
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah, the only reason this church outlasted the 1800s and grew to its size is the people who are indoctrinated from birth
Mm-hmm.
and have huge families.
Mhm.
and indoctrinate all of those
Yeah,
people.
that's the kind of thing too. The polygamy it's
Yeah.
an easy, like, low hanging fruit kind of joke,
hmm
but it's a pretty good way to cement your status, or
Yeah.
cement your longevity.
And it was part of your eternal salvation in the doctrine for 50 years
Yeah.
before they had to stop doing it openly in order to exist in Utah State,
As
like
a
for
state,
Utah
yeah.
State to happen.
That's a great method of build. You're building.
Let me
your
tell you, we were
civilization.
not talking about polygamy in the congregation. If anything, it was like those rumors are greatly exaggerated.
Mhm.
Oh, are they?
But the truth is, Joseph Smith had at least 35, 37 wives that we know of. Brigham Young had about 50.
Wow.
Somewhere around 3, I can understand still having like, very distinct, specific emotional attachments to them. 10 or more,
Yeah.
and you're simply reproductive vessels.
Yep.
30, 50. I don't know if right now I have 50 really intimate relationships. I have
Yeah.
close friends and I
Sure.
have really close acquaintances and stuff that probably reaches that range, but like that I could be taken care of and know the worries and concerns of.
I don't think I know
Definitely
50
not.
women.
Yeah, are you serious? You're talking about reproductive vessels here. You're not talking about marriages.
Yeah.
Most of these were to ensure their salvation in the afterlife.
Yeah,
They
that's
were-
a good way
they
to
were-
get someone
That's a
in
great
bed.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Put that on Tinder. Woo, boy.
How do you feel about hell?
Yeah.
He married very young girls.
Also an easy target.
Yeah. And he
I don't know that.
he
from
made it like-
experience. I don't know why we just immediately assumed that I would know that. But
he made it like his burden that he had to do this. That an angel
yes.
Oh, yeah.
an angel came to him with a flaming sword, told him that he had to do this or he would be damned.
That's just the cloud.
destroyed. And that the
Yeah.
woman would be destroyed if she did not do this. So sorry, it's we got to do it.
Also a great line. This is my heavenly burden.
Yeah.
Honey.
That's how the church makes him out to be.
So,
like he he was this meek, sensitive individual who was the chosen one. Why?
Oh my God, Annie played the nice guy card the whole time.
Oh well, not
Wow.
really, not
Incel.
himself, but that's the image that's portrayed now.
Yeah.
If you watch like church produced film about
Sure,
Joseph
yeah,
Smith,
let's do
it's
that.
sickening.
Let's get into that game.
If you want to, we can watch Joseph Smith, Prophet of the Restoration. It's disgusting, but
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
You sold that.
it's actually it's fascinating to watch just how like reverently they treat this man who was full of shit.
Sure, yeah.
But okay, my point is, why, if this was God's one true church being restored to the earth finally, why would he choose this man
Mm.
who was already known to be a con man? That's how he and his family were known.
Here's another thing too, that
He was a kid.
going back to when I was a kid in church, I know I'm not the first person or the last person to say it, but like, if someone today told you they heard the word of God, or
Yeah.
God spoke directly to them,
Nobody believes David Koresh.
I mean,
Or-
it's like even if they do, it's like, all right, so it's a person with some sort of mental illness, and then people with other
And
mental
charismatic.
illness.
And
There's no way.
Which
it's
there
not.
are mental illnesses that do come
Yeah.
off as very charismatic.
There's some chemical alteration, some heavy drug use in the moment, or you're mentally ill.
Mhm.
That's about it.
And it always seems to start small and then grow out of control. It always turns to sex and power control. Like Joseph Smith ran for president before he died.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Are there any like pamphlets or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sidney Rigdon,
who
was his
won?
running mate. This
Who
would've-
was he up against?
He was
Who-
running in the 1844, I believe.
So he didn't get on the ticket as a major party candidate.
I don't think so.
Right.
It was right before he died.
Like he didn't make it through the primaries.
No.
Yeah.
like we're not even going to get close to the things that I would love to talk about. Like he created his own bank that failed miserably. He had to move his people around so many times because they were persecuted.
So that's something I'd really like to talk about. The amount of we'll save that for another episode, but that's something I'm really fascinated about is the amount of times that he moved before they got to Utah.
But persecution is like the Mormons' lifeblood. Our people were persecuted.
It's their currency.
So, I see several narratives here that are really common and do make sense for why people would want to believe it. And so you have something like a pity narrative, which is good.
We must have the truth. Everyone is so scared of it, scared of us.
Yeah, you brought up the con man. Why would God choose a con man? Well, that's also a really classic, even a self narrative that we tell ourselves. That's really, really powerful in our psychology and then of course in our just elsewhere in culture. But the redemption story is massively important to us as people. Mm-hmm. This idea that we can overcome our sins and our shortcomings to become something greater. So why not take something terrible and make it a profit? So
it's like inspiration porn.
Exactly. And it would have been too. So
but also if this is supposed to be the one true gospel, why would it be so transparently wrong? Like everything about it, we can look at and say, well, that's where this came from. That's not what this actually is.
Life's imperfect.
But there's no real good answer for that because it's horseshit.
Because it's mind blowing that at least 15 million people have been named as members of the church. Not nearly that many people attend congregations every Sunday, and a lot of people are leaving. I don't know. I think the growth of the church has slowed way down as in terms of how many converts there are and how many people are leaving. So I should say, up until 4 months ago, I was still counted as a member of the church. But there's a website now called.
This is pretty amazing, actually. You have to force.
Yeah, you have
to resignation.
Officially resign.
You don't just stop showing up. Like, there's no way that anybody considers me Lutheran anymore. Like, there isn't anybody counting me among the followers and whatever that is. Like that.
Yeah, most of them don't have the roles that the Mormon Church does, and the Mormon Church is super into genealogy too. They've traced family lineage quite a ways back, and that's actually
right there. I want to learn all about.
It's quite admirable, actually, and my grandmother's really interested in it, and that's tracked our family tree a long time. But quitmormon.com is where you can go, and a pro bono lawyer sends in a resignation on your behalf, and the church responds fairly quickly in granting that request. If you send a letter to the church yourself, they're going to contact your bishop. Bishop's going to contact local congregation. They're going to come talk to you. They're going to contact your parents. We got to do something to stop this. So just a brief overview of where this goes. Book of Mormon is like the start of Scripture. All the big outside Christianity, Joseph Smith's prophecy stuff comes in what is now known as Doctrine and Covenants and the Pearl of Great Price.
Yeah, I would buy those sequels for sure.
Yeah.
And that is where all of his direct revelation from God, speaking directly through him, is written down. And it's just constant. Like if something comes up, somebody challenges his authority, even within the church, we got a revelation from God says for you to stop doing this, to listen to me.
Which is what they still do now with the bishops. Or the prophets, not the bishops.
Yeah,
that's what
essentially.
The prophet does. Yeah, he's there making sure that
but
there's no ambiguity.
Prophets generally don't give prophecies anymore. And
Lame.
when the current prophet said when the current prophet said of the name change, he says the Lord impressed upon my mind. Not that he's directly communing.
Oh, he does that literally with all of us every single time we have a thought.
Yeah. Totally.
If you really believe that,
right?
Yeah, it's happening.
They tell you that in order to know the Book of Mormon is true, you just got to pray about it, ask God, and He'll tell you.
Is the prophet wearing a robe when he's saying this stuff?
No, he's wearing a nice suit.
Wait, that's actually pretty cool. I like that. So why do they go to church if all you have to do is just read the book and then?
Oh, because you got to keep paying tithing. Tithing is a huge thing.
Oh yeah, but that's pretty common with most religions.
So the goal,
God needs money.
the goal now.
He requires that you dig in the ground and bring the iron to him.
Yeah,
that he made.
yeah, that he put there.
I lost all my ore. You will go forth and fetch it.
The ultimate goal of a member of the church is to go to the temple. This is the sacred.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, is to go to the temple, receive your temple endowment, because this is how you get to heaven ultimately.
Wait.
This is where you learn, and I showed you a bit of a video
Yeah.
from inside the temple, in which they learn signs and tokens that they're supposed to give to the Lord upon entrance to heaven. So you're going to have to learn a handshake, and you have to remember your new name that you're given in the temple, which is like classic cult thing to do, is give you a
Did
new
you get
name.
a new name?
I haven't been to the temple, not to do the endowment. I've done baptisms for the dead, which is a whole nother thing.
Does your sister have a new name?
My sister did, yes.
She has a new name.
Yes.
Oh, I can't wait to learn about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get up to heaven, right? You've been a real good boy, right?
Yeah.
Like literally your whole life. You felt the tithings in your bosom, and all the other shit.
in your bosom.
Right? Like you've done it all.
Pretty much.
You went on a mission, right? You've been a great,
Yeah. You got married in the temple.
had a bunch of rabbit sex with countless
Yes.
women. It's great.
It's all good.
Everything's good.
You did all
You
the
get
right
up to
stuff.
heaven and you're just like, shit. And you forget your handshake. What
Here's
does
the
God
thing.
do?
I know the handshake,
Oh, so you got into heaven. You're done. You're out
so
of,
I don't need to know anything else.
right.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Wow. Speed run.
See, here's the
Speed
thing.
run Mormonism.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You can watch the entire temple endowment ceremony on YouTube now, because we live in the age of technology, small cameras. And let me tell you guys, when I saw this stuff, because I had no idea what was happening behind these temple doors, it blew my mind. It made me feel so concerned for my family that they
Mhm.
would, as
Yeah.
adults, go through this, experience all of this, not only once, several times in the name of dead people. And they somehow it enriches their belief that they're
They gender
into one-
separate it once you get into the temple. They like split you off, men and women.
in some parts of it, yes.
Yeah.
But and we'll get into this later. But there's all this signs and tokens stuff is all from Freemasonry. Joseph became a Freemason. 3 weeks later, introduced the temple endowment ceremony with all of these signs and tokens and all this symbolism, verbatim,
Nothing suspicious with that.
nearly verbatim verbiage of all these directions.
He summed it up great. He's just a
so much.
synthesizer of information.
Exactly. So I want to just end it with this. There's a 4-hour there's a 4-hour sermon I'm about to give you.
What did I just say?
No. No, this is
We have a 4-hour video.
no. There's a,
Two-part.
Big Clockwork Orange, the eyedropper.
here, strap
We
in.
haven't gotten nearly as far as I wanted to.
No, in all seriousness, there's a really good documentary. Very even-handed. They talk to the apostles. They talk to apostates. They talk to historians, Egyptologists, about the church. It's called History of the Mormons. You find it on YouTube. It's in two-hour parts. And there's a guy, and I forgot to get his name. But this is a quote from him at pretty much the end of the documentary, and it really sums up my view, having been raised in the church and how having now found myself far outside of it, but still fascinated by it and religion in general and theology in general. This is his quote. What is the essence of religion? Sigmund Freud said it was the longing for the father. Others have called it the desire for the mother or for transcendence. I feel deeply that all these are idealizations, and I offer the rather melancholy suggestion that they would all vanish from us if we did not know that we must die. Religion rises inevitably from our apprehension of our own death. To give meaning to the meaninglessness is the endless quest of all religion. When death becomes a center of our consciousness, then religion authentically begins. Of all religions I know, the one that most vehemently and persuasively defies and denies the reality of death is the original Mormonism of the prophet, seer, and revelator Joseph Smith.
Yeah, I completely agree with that assessment of religion. It's a great quote.
And we'll get into the details of just how vehemently and completely they deny the nature of death. Because guess what, guys? When we're resurrected, we'll be restored entirely, atom for atom, perfect, to our perfect state of being.
And what was their sense of chemistry and physics back then? Did they have it?
It's garbage.
Is there any possibility for like immortality?
That is the idea.
That's the idea. Okay.
That not only that,
but I'm going to die first, and then I'm going to come back.
Unless Jesus comes while we're living in the latter days, so Jesus could be coming any time now, and you might not die.
Well, yeah, that's very cultish as well.
Yes,
that's just what I've assumed.
You just happen to be alive.
I grew up believing, being told at least, that it was a good possibility that the Armageddon would happen in my lifetime, that Christ would return.
That's
well, the Christ part I don't really agree with, but the first part's pretty accurate.
But ultimately, they believe that through all this temple endowment and all this stuff, you could be like God because, and get this, as man is, God once was, and as God is, man may become. Oh yeah.
So what does that make God? That is a nonsense sentence.
Exactly. We'll get to it. Or it's the one true gospel.
Or eventually, you get to be a god and make your own world.
Yep.
Yeah, nonsense. Kind of sounds a little bit like the Gita to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I hope that we'll have you back, at least for the future.
Yeah, I'll be in these. These are great. I don't have to do anything other than just get my mind blown.
This is different for me to be the presenter of the information.
You're natural at it. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for going through that your whole life so that you could talk about it
I'm
now.
still going through it, buddy.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to be reading the Book of Mormon, a couple of biographies of Joseph Smith I got coming up. All this next year, I'm like really reading text.
And your sister's back and
he's going down.
It's fine. Yeah, it doesn't actually fall. It just warbles.
It doesn't look
I wish we had video.
Real for some reason. It doesn't look like
I think the spring's busted in the chair.
It doesn't look like the way you should fall.
She'll be back in June. But we can talk about temples, Doctrine and Covenants. The Book of Abraham is a huge one for me because we have physical evidence of that. That still exists.
I like that.
The Egyptian text that he said was the Book of Abraham, and we know it's not.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking I might just become a Mormon just to send that letter and then like do that every 6 months. Say, I want back in and then send the letter just to cause paperwork for...
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I'm Darren McCarthy.
I'm Dan Fury.
I'm Martin Wallace.
And this has been The Fundamentals.
This has been The Fundamentals. You can follow us on Twitter @FundamentalsPod or find us at facebook.com/TheFundamentalsPod and send your questions, comments, and suggestions to thefundamentalspod@gmail.com.